Beginning with Iberville's landing in 1699, Point Cadet has been the Ellis Island of the Gulf Coast, with waves of immigrants from far-flung corners of the globe calling the Point home. Sue Nguyen's family discovered the historic area in a slightly different way.
My parents immigrated to San Diego. Both my parents decided to take a cross-country trip on I-10. They got on the 8, got on the 10, and drove all the way through, Florida. And one of the stops they made was Biloxi, Mississippi. And they really liked the climate, the culture, and everything else. They decided to pick up the family and move to Biloxi, Mississippi. Unlike a lot of the Vietnamese communities, a lot of people went into the fishing industry or shipping industry, and unfortunately my dad gets violently seasick, so that wasn't in the plans at all. And they started working here in one of the factories. Quite a few years later, they opened up a market, and it was a family business for about 19 years. And then my father passed away, and I took over the family business, and I incorporated a bakery into the market, and then the bakery kind of took off on its own, so we kind of closed the market down, and here I am.
A Franco-Vietnamese bakery in the heart of Dixie. Le Bakery is a surprise for unsuspecting tourists and is a comforting touchstone for coast residents.
Our clientele would be, I would say, a lot of the old Biloxians, ones that grew up remembering standing in line to get hot bread from the bakeries. Those people that actually still enjoy having their morning cup of coffee and eating hot French bread.
Are we going to get our chocolate?
I think food is a great way of bridging that gap between all different types of cultures. And I mean, that's kind of like what we do here with our sandwiches and stuff like that too, where we do our take on the po' boy, which is the whole southern thing, and then we do our Asian meats and stuff. And I think with our bakery being here, a lot of people who live on the other side of town or different areas, that make the drive over here because word of mouth that they heard this was a great bakery, to me it breaks a lot of barriers.
As the storm approached, Sue and her family evacuated to Atlanta, not knowing the extent of the damage to their business, their lives, or their community.
Of course, we were there watching everything progress, and then the day of the hurricane, all the coverage was basically New Orleans. We'd get a clip or two of Biloxi, and what we could see of what was left of Biloxi, was pretty heartbreaking. It makes you feel very, helpless at the very point of, you not knowing what's going on, back at home. So we pretty much decided to, make the decision to come back. And as we got to the building here, I think we saw, the building still intact, which was amazing. Of course, windows, doors, things like that blown out and whatnot, but it was amazing because if you had seen all the buildings around here, literally there was houses in the streets, just massive structures just completely demolished, For us to see the building, we were just ecstatic, I mean, we have something until you open the doors. And at that point, trying to open the door and the smells, and then it looked like a big muddy milkshake that somebody shook up and threw everything around.
Sue's attitude towards rebuilding reflects the tough but affable nature prevalent among coast residents.
I think we kind of had that fight, in us to rebuild and clean up and to protect and to basically salvage what's yours, salvage what you have at that point, because that's all you have. I think once you're so low, there's really not anywhere else to go but up. That was kind of my take on the whole The South Will Rise Again. So with us being the bakery, I had that bread will rise again. It just needs time. I've had a lot of comments on it. A lot of people drive by and take pictures of it. By the time I actually took it off the building, it was all moldy, and, of course it was plywood that was left from the storm surge. And I would have kept it if it wasn't such in a bad, condition. And I actually had a customer come by and bring me that, a picture of it framed. And part of his story was that when he drove by and saw all this devastation down here, his heart was completely broken to know that this was, Biloxi. And when he saw the sign, that was the first laugh he got. So he took a picture of it, and again, so he sent it to me. He gave me a copy of it, and I told him, I was like, that's the only picture I have of it. So I leave it on my wall. The gaming industry is great, and then we also have other industries here too, that makes up this area. So, I mean, I see Biloxi moving in a good direction, or at least the Gulf Coast moving in a good direction.
Thanks. Oops, sorry.